content specialist with Pioneer Athletics. And today I'm kicking off our coaches panel series. So we always hear from the groundskeeper perspective. Naturally, this is the groundskeeper chat series. But I thought for this topic, let's bring the other person on the other side of the spectrum onto the chat to kind of hear their POV and really get down into the nitty gritty of coaches / field manager relationships. So I have Willie and Jonathan from Arizona State University joining me. Gentlemen, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll get started.
Go ahead, buddy.
I'm Jon Larson. I'm the head groundskeeper here at ASU baseball. I have a practice field and our stadium field that I maintain.
I'm Willie Bloomquist. I'm the head coach at Arizona State baseball program. Just happy to be working alongside this guy.
So that leads me to my first question. How long have you guys been working with each other?
Just over a year and a few months now. So I got the job last June. So it'll be about a year and almost a year and a half.
And what does that really look like, day one of that job, or even if it starts, in the hiring process? What does it look like to build a relationship for two jobs that are naturally at odds with one another?
Well, for me, I guess, history with me being in baseball for a long time, I was always one that was using the field frequently. So I always was taught at a young age or early in my career to always have respect for the grounds crew guys, because they're the ones that are out there getting the field ready for you and making it nice, and they do a lot of work. So for me, that's just something that I've kind of gone through my professional career, knowing that the grounds crew guys work their butt off, and you got to take care of them. So for me, that hasn't changed. Obviously, is now that I'm in this position to where, I see what they do. They're nonstop around the clock working, and got to fix busted pipes and get the field ready, for our guys. And, that's to me, that you can't put a price tag on it when you have a good crew that works around the clock for you.
For sure. But Jon, I don't know if in your experience or just, being with your ear to the industry, that is definitely not always the case. Whether it be coach's education or the player's education, not a lot of people come in with an appreciation for a groundskeeper. So, in your experience, is this relationship been different in that sense, where he came in with knowledge of what you do, or have you been blessed to have many relationships like that?
Most of my relationships have gone fairly well. This is probably the best relationship I've ever had with a head coach. One thing about Willie is, I was a groundskeeper when he was a player. And whenever I first met Willie, I told him, I said, we used to hate you as a player. Well, why is that? Because he always wore spikes during batting practice and while he was taking ground balls. So that's how we kind of kicked off our relationship, and we're open and honest with each other, and he's got a vision. I see his vision, and we meet in the middle. And so this is probably the best relationship I've ever had with a head coach before.
And that brings up a great point. How important is it for a field manager to buy into the coach's vision, while also keeping their vision in mind? How do you really keep that balance in, they're your client in a sense. The coaches and the player are your customer. How do you make sure that their vision is taken care of while making sure that best practices are being met?
Well, I don't see it as he's a client. I see it as we're a team. We're all one. We can't win without him. They can't play games without me. So this is a teamwork thing. We have to be on the same level. There's a level of compromise on some things, and it's like a marriage, and if you're not heading in the same direction, you're not going to go very far.
Yeah. Especially the amount of time you guys have to spend with each other. It's definitely closer to a marriage.
Yeah, I'll echo it too, and just say, it's for a program to function properly is everybody's got to be on the same page, and everyone has to share the same goal and same vision. And I think, not speaking for Jon, but he wants to win a national championship just like I do.
Mhm.
And in order for that to work, we all got to be on the same page, because if the field's not ready, and I have, one thing that I got to get better at is communicating, and when there's a change in the practice plan. So I know I think if there is one time he may get the old red culo at me, it's because I forget to let him know a change is in the practice plan, and that's on me. But bottom line is we are all in this together. We're all striving to do the same thing, because if we win, we all win. It's everybody's in this thing together, and from the head trainer, the head grounds crew, to the hitting coach, to the head coach, to the player. I mean, everybody's in this together trying to do the same thing.
I love that. And Leah Withrow with the Reno Aces, I saw that her team actually was on the road for their championship game, but it looked like the whole organization came out to support them. And it really was the players, the grounds crew, the people in the office, they all were out there celebrating that championship win. So that's definitely a great perspective to keep in mind when, trying to balance the differences in the two gigs, for sure.
Well, I mean, I'll take yesterday, for example. We had a big rainstorm the day before. We got canceled on Saturday. Got probably an inch and a half of rain. Mm-hmm. And Sunday, the field's a mess. I show up here at the stadium in the morning, and we walked the field. We went on a walk together, walked the field. I asked them point blank, can we get this ready in time? Obviously I don't want to make him do that, because it's a ton of work, extra work, but if he wasn't willing to do that, our pitchers get put behind about a week. Yeah. And so from that standpoint, if he's not willing to go the extra mile, and isn't bought into what we're doing, and it's just it's too much work. Lesser guys probably would have said it's too much work, Blooming, we can't get it done, but not this guy and not his crew. They busted their butt all day. They got it done. We were able to get a 9-inning game in last night, keep our pitchers on schedule. And so, without him being able to do something like that, it puts the whole program behind. Yeah. So that's the kind of relationship that you have to have. And I know I didn't want to necessarily make him do that, but I knew from my end it would put us behind, and he's willing to go the extra mile. So that's invaluable.
And what does that really look like as far as, Jon's been in it for a while, so you probably didn't have to educate him on how a program works or something like that. But what does that look like for maybe a coach that comes in with a new program, or a coach that, is working with a field manager who maybe just came from football and now is going to be taking over baseball field? How do you really communicate the importance of that program? Or, just communicating the facts, hey, if we don't get this game in, my pitchers are going to be a week behind. How do you have those type of conversations without diminishing what they have to do as well?
Right. I think you said the word several times in that question with communication. Mm-hmm. If you don't communicate, that's how things fail. To where, I thought you meant this. No, it's just be real. And Jon's honest with me, hey, I don't think I can get that done. Okay, cool. We'll adjust on our end. But he knows how passionate I am about this place, and how bad, if there is something that was unreasonable, he knows I wouldn't ask it. But if there is a way to do it, and if there's a dead end road, he would tell me it's not going to fly. I don't think we can get this done, which doesn't happen too often in his end. But from that standpoint, it's just a matter of being real with each other, communicating. He knows where he wants this program to get back to the top just as bad as I do. So, he knows that if there's a pathway to do that, and his job is a huge piece of the pie for all of us, then he's going to do what it takes on his end too. So, zero problems so far. We've gotten along very well because we talk it out and communicate it.
Yeah. And Jon, as we've been doing this groundskeeper chat where this is a common thing that groundskeepers will say: communicate with your coaches, communicate with your players, educate them, yada, yada. But let's talk logistics. What does that really look like? How frequently are you guys touching base to make sure that you're on the same page in the season? How frequently are you kind of, at each other's, making sure you're on the same page?
Well, during the season, everything's pretty repetitive. There's some things that's like, hey, we'll be out there, we'll be working and getting ready for stuff, and it's, hey, are we gonna do this drill, or are we gonna do this drill, or are we gonna keep to the normal in and out? And it's like, oh no, today we're gonna do this. Okay, so I kind of prepare for that, throughout as my next 20 minutes as they're coming out, or the guys are stretching or whatever, and that tells me how to water, how much to put down, where to water, where not to water. If we're going to be doing a lot of base running, I'm not putting down as much water as if we were.
Mm-hmm.
So it's during the season, it's very routine.
Mm-hmm. And pretty constant, it sounds like.
Yeah, pretty constant. And when the team goes on the road, that's whenever I'm fixing stuff, doing the extra things. Whenever we're at home, I'm still doing some extra things.
Always something to be done here.
It's always something to be done. So and then I guess going back to your last question too is or how you're talking about let's communicate. Well, it's not just communication, it's about trust.
Sure.
And I gotta trust him just like he has to trust me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was last year we had 0% chance of rain, and it was a game day, and we had a little cell that popped up, and it dumped some water out there, and we had a bunch of puddles and stuff out there. And he comes out and I said, Willie, don't worry about it, I got it. He goes, are you sure? And I said, yep, normal day, don't worry about it, we got it. And we got it, didn't we?
Turned around and walked off. I said, okay, you got it. I trust him.
Yeah,
I'm not going to try to infringe and do his job. And if he tells me it's going to get done, hey, okay, it's going to get done.
So trust is a big thing.
Huge. Yeah, definitely. And when it goes for sure. And just like trusting that the other person has your best interests in mind at the end of the day as well.
Correct.
And going back to, maybe when you're not in season, what does planning look like when you guys are conducting those, yearly plans, quarterly plans, seasonal plans? Are you guys having to check in with each other for that, or what does that really look like?
Yeah, I mean, we from our end, we try to do, when we come into the season, we try to lay out the whole fall as far as, what days are individual work days, what days are team days, what days we're scrimmaging. So we'll have, kind of a macro sized calendar for, the first 3 months or so of after the guys get here. So it's a basic skeleton of how we plan on doing things, where our 2 scrimmages are going to be, if we're going to be on the road for those, meaning the non-inter squad scrimmages. So this year we play Grand Canyon and Vanderbilt. But just kind of being able to share that with him. And then anything else that pops up, like we got the fall league this weekend, which is going to be a tough weekend for the boys, grounds crew wise, because they got 3 games in one day, and that's a lot for them. But things like that pop up that we put on the schedule, and then on a daily basis, we try to give them, shoot out a daily practice plan. What time we're starting, what drills we're doing, kind of the basics of that, so they can kind of prepare ahead for that.
How typical do you think something like that is? Like a coach providing a daily, practice for team? Because that sounds like, that could solve a lot of problems, really, but it does require planning on your end, having your shit together essentially as well. Yeah.
We have to, that's something that, again, there's nothing in my mind that makes me uneasy as a head coach than more so than a disorganized practice.
Yeah.
And that falls directly on me. If I don't have my coaches knowing where they're going and what we're doing, and the players not knowing what's going on during practice, it ends up being a disaster. So it's hard enough to, we hold our players to a pretty high standard when we do practice, with making sure they do things right. So on my end, if I don't have a well thought out plan, and this is exactly we're expecting of them, then how can I expect them to do it right? So that does take extra planning on our part as a staff, but that's something that, in my mind, that just comes with the job, that you have to be able to be on it and be upfront and understand what, so everybody's on the same page. These guys got to know what we're doing so they can plan out and have the field ready. I have to know what I'm doing, so I'm prepared for the practice, and then the players got to know what's going on, to have an idea what we're going after today.
Definitely. So yeah, Jon, from your point of view, how typical is that for a coach to really provide a field manager with something like that?
With the other organizations I've been in, we've had that. But since I've been here at ASU, we've had a former coach that, we would get the schedule during practice.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we're getting the schedules, the day before. So we're preparing, we have 24 hours to prepare, and then I can check weather and give them a heads up on whether something like that's going to happen, or, if I'm doing certain things and, hey, we might need to switch this up a little bit or something like that. We'll compromise on something like that, but that doesn't happen too often. So we have 24 hours notice, and which is a great thing. It's huge.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds like a game changer to me, really. And in the event that those tough conversations have to happen, whether it's somebody's having to postpone a game or cancel a game altogether, how is that communication happening between you guys? And then who is the guy that has to go out and communicate it to the community?
Well, I think it's, again, it kind of goes back to what we touched upon earlier. If Jon says it can't be done, it can't be done. I trust what he's doing. And if there is a way, knowing what I know about him, if there is a way to get it done, he's going to do it.
Yeah.
So that's to me, that's written already in stone. So if he says we ain't going to be able to get this one in, there's really no conflicting coming back and saying, yes, we can. It's like, hey, if you're saying you can't do it, then I know we probably can't do it. So we'll have to adjust on it. How that gets, relayed to the general public, I guess that would be probably our media relations or somebody like that. But knock on wood, we haven't had that problem. We don't have that problem too often in Tempe because we got a lot of sunshine here.
Yeah. Yeah, I can just think of like a Parks and Rec groundskeeper who, lives on the East Coast or something, having to come out to a field of parents and tell them, yeah, it ain't happening today. That cannot be fun.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. That's I have a boss as well. That's a stadium director, and that's another way that we kind of communicate is I communicate with him if there's something I can't do or get done. I let him use his channels, with ticketing and social medias and whoever he needs to contact. I kind of put that off onto his plate, so. But yeah, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, you guys are blessed and sunshine. So we won't talk about that since I live in Cleveland. It'll just depress me. So, but for other field managers who don't have, who wouldn't join this chat calling each other buddy, for field managers who may have not established a solid relationship with their coach yet, or maybe they're a year ago what you guys were at. It's just starting out and, they want to make sure they start off on the right foot. What advice could each of you give them to kind of make sure it steers in the right direction or how to get it back on track?
Again, for me, communication is key. You got to be able to communicate. You got to look at things objectively and understand that we all got to be on the same page for what's the common goal here. I got to respect his job. He has to respect mine. Hopefully, with our program, again, we're aspiring to all shoot for the same thing. But, when you have maybe people that aren't in a program together where it's two different sides, I think at the end of the day, you have to communicate what's the common goal, respect each other's position on what their job is. And what they're after respectively. I think that's got to be number one in my mind is you got to be able to communicate with each other.
Definitely.
Yeah. For me, it's being honest, being upfront, and just getting on the same wavelength, being on the same page, like we've talked about before. It's, you got to find out what his vision is. He's got to find out what my vision is. Got to kind of meet in the middle and and hey, what's the end result? What's the objective? What's, all those questions. It's there has to be some sort of unity, common ground. And I think that's really important.
And is that really the culture of Arizona State University? Just, this unity, a team atmosphere? Or do you think that's something that you guys have kind of instilled in the program?
Well, I think, I can't speak for all the other sports programs, at ASU. I do know that the head coaches, that's what we discuss, is trying to be a unified, university when it comes to athletics program. But I think all of us as head coaches individually have to reiterate that amongst our own programs. And that's, I can't control what the other 21 programs do over there. All I can control is our program here. And that's something I demand top to bottom from our players to my staff to Jon and his staff. I mean, it's everybody's got to be pulling in the same direction, because if not, then you're taking us away from our ultimate goal. So, you're either 2 feet in or you're out, type thing. If you don't want to be here, it's okay. This program's not for everybody, but if you don't want to be here, please don't waste our time, because we do want to be here and we do want to get this thing right.
And that mentions, another huge component, another huge player at play in this atmosphere are your players, your athletes. And, how much of a priority do you put on educating them about what the grounds crew has to do and making sure that they know what's going on and have a respect for it, that you have a respect for it?
I think that's part of, again, my job is to continue teaching our student athletes, our baseball players, right from wrong, and what's our standard? Where are we going to put our standard? Are we going to be mediocre? Are we going to be great? Or are we going to be terrible? Like, what's your ultimate goal here? If your standard is to be, the best program in the country, then hold yourself to that standard and don't slack on it. That means being respectful. That means picking up your stuff. That means doing what you're supposed to do, on a daily basis, doing what you're supposed to do and doing it right. Doesn't mean leaving your trash out in the dugout. I mean, it's just a little thing, but at the end of the day, Jon's not your maid. I'm not their maid. Go out and get it done. You pick up after yourself. You're responsible for bringing your equipment in. And if you don't respect your equipment, then you don't get equipment. And it's part of the way you live your life. So anything that matters is worth doing right. So for me, that's just kind of the standard we hold to these guys and the players. And I think they know how much I respect Jon. Again, just from even last night after the game, we brought him up and I made him thank Jon for all the hard work of getting the field ready to play last night, because it was not an easy night to get ready for. So
yeah,
they I think understand that, and I think Jon actually fines them if they leave their stuff out more than once.
Yep.
In order, they gotta pay a couple bucks to get their equipment back. So they learn real quick that to pick up out of themselves and be respectful.
Love that. And then just to go back to logistics, I wanted to make sure I touched on this question. With so many ways to communicate with each other, text, call, email, face-to-face, what is your guys' preferred method? And is there a different preferred method when the conversation changes, or, is a tough conversation happening in a different way than, just a simple update? What does that look like for you guys?
I prefer a chat over a whiskey on the rocks with Jon.
Yeah.
I love that.
That would be my number one, but being that we can't do that on a daily basis, because people might judge that a little bit. But no, we usually are on communication on the phones, texting, if there's an immediate update. But sometimes, I don't know how often we do. We try, I guess, maybe once a month or once every couple of weeks to, unwind. As our trainer, our staff, or the guys around. Hey man, let's hang after practice for a little bit after practice and pour one and hang out and just kind of talk shop on what we can do better and where we're at with stuff. So, again, I get not everybody's out there is buddies with their grounds crew guys and friends from top to bottom, but I guess we're lucky, we're blessed. We get along really well, and you got to enjoy the ride sometimes too.
Definitely makes the job a whole lot easier, I'm sure too.
Oh yeah,
sure.
All right, so last question for you guys. Any last words of wisdom or lessons you've learned along the way that you would want to share with others who don't have this camaraderie set in place?
I'll let you take. I've only been at this for about a year. That's how I've done it here in the year that I've got the job. But
we're tapping into the veterans.
I'll tap over to the vet and let them take this one.
I'll tell you, with relationships like this, you don't ever go to work.
Yeah.
You work is something you don't want to do, and at least that's in my book. And so whenever I come here, interact with Willie, we have our plan. It's every day is a fun day at the ballpark. No matter if it's you're slinging conditioner and you're trying to dry out a field, or it's a bright sunny day, or you have a kid that walks through your foul line, and you've got wet paint all over the place. It's never a bad day if you're having fun. And when times are tough, the tough get going. And just remember, it could always be a lot worse somewhere else.
For sure. That's good advice for anybody on their way, that it could always be worse.
Yeah.
You're at the ballpark, man. I mean, if you don't like being at the ballpark, you're in the wrong line of work. So
that's for sure.
Go do something else. I'll take my chances. I'd rather have a bad day at the ballpark than a good day trapped inside somewhere.
That's for sure. Well, I really appreciate the two of you taking the time to join me for this. I think a lot of good golden nuggets nestled in there that people can pull and take away and hopefully apply to their own programs. And if they don't already have a good camaraderie with their coach or their field manager, hopefully this will be the first little push to get them there. So thank you guys again.
You bet.
You bet.
No problem.
Thank you.